After the success of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Walt Disney changed the perception of what animation was. It was no longer an art form relegated to being comedic fodder for live-action films. His animation team could make more than just cartoons, so Walt Disney aimed for the stars. He dealt with telling wonderful stories complete with horror, drama, and artistry. But his grandest idea became one of his biggest flops, and unfairly so. He not only revolutionized animation, but also the sound industry and how we would experience symphonic music going forward. My name's Josh Taylor, this is Modern Mouse, and today I want to talk about Fantasia and why it deserves to be understood and appreciated. Sparked by the idea to boost Mickey Mouse's popularity, Walt Disney thought that the 18th century poem The Sorcerer's Apprentice would adapt well to Mickey and the style that he'd perfected with silly symphonies, putting action to music, but he was looking to do something even bigger. Rather than making it an overly comedic piece, he wanted to tell a story filled with fantasy, with music creating the world around Mickey. After a chance meeting with Leopold Stokowski in 1937, one of the world's leading symphonic conductors of the time, Walt pitched the idea of collaborating on the Mickey Mouse short with him. Stokowski was so excited about this project to put color to music that he opted to sign on with no payment necessary. But as production started to ramp up, it was clear that The Sorcerer's Apprentice as a short was not going to make any money playing in front of any live-action films. So Walt opted to turn the entire project into a full-length feature film that would include The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and he and Leopold Stokowski sat down to pick all of the music for the project. Beyond being deliberate with their musical choices, the film that would become Fantasia was meticulously created. Prior to any animation or storyboards being made, color palettes were chosen to match the music, allowing for stories to be built around those colors. Selections were made with the audience in mind, in the same way that a band would create a set list for a concert. Musical and visual pieces would flow well together, creating highs and lows as the audience watched and listened. Take Bald Mountain, for example, a very visually frightening and intense piece of music that would get the audience wound up, shaken, and gripping their seats. Similar to The Horned King in The Black Cauldron, another film that I defended in a recent video, the demon Chernabog and his skeletons riding into the night are horrifying, and one of the scariest visuals that Disney has ever put to screen. To ease the audience, the sequence is followed by the comfort and calm of a choir, singing Ave Maria. Attention to details like this were key. Fantasia ditches the singular narrative experience of a regular film, and in that way, this film is one of Disney's most experimental. But he never saw it as just a film. Fantasia was always meant to be an experience. People now who have only seen Fantasia on their TV at home don't really understand what Walt Disney was trying to accomplish. You hardly ever see Fantasia as someone's favorite Disney film. It's never ranked in some best of BuzzFeed articles. It's mostly known as some weird thing that Walt Disney did with classical music. But those people aren't looking at it from the perspective that Walt had, and how he truly nailed what the future of symphonic music was. If you live in a big city, you'll now often see your local symphonic orchestra playing along to movies like Star Wars and Harry Potter. And these concert hall experiences are big ticket events. In fact, these types of events are how classical music has stayed alive in the modern era, matching beautiful music with visuals. Walt was such a futurist that he understood how people could and would still consume classical symphonic music. He understood that the right visuals, regardless of narrative, would actually hold the attention of an audience. Fantasia was never meant to be seen on your TV screen at home. It was meant to be seen in a big theater with a loud production, making you just as much a part of the experience as the film was. Fantasia was originally a touring production, meaning that it would set up shop in a major city theater for a few weeks, and then move on to a new city. That was done because Walt saw the experience of Fantasia as something bigger than what a normal movie theater could create. Rather than bringing an entire orchestra to play the film, Walt wanted to create a sound system that could mimic the feel of sitting at a concert hall. His animation team came up with what they called Fantasound. Basically, what they had created was surround sound, making Fantasia the very first film to be heard in surround sound, something that most of us take for granted in theaters today. Walt also wanted to bring in another one of the human senses to Fantasia: smell. He wanted to actually pump different scents into the theater depending on what piece of music and what visual was playing. Unfortunately, that was beyond the reach of what they could do to retrofit some of these theaters to play Fantasia. It is something that he kept in the back of his mind though, and when he opened up Disneyland, he added that component in, creating a sensory overload as you walk by the candy shop or the bakery on Main Street, USA. Even at its time of release, Fantasia wasn't an experience that was appreciated. Critics gave it raving reviews as they saw the possibilities of what it was, but it was too strange for regular audience goers who were looking to be told a singular story. Even since then, Fantasia has continued to be one of Disney's black sheep projects, all the way until now. But I think it's something we should think about readapting. Part of the reason that it didn't work is because Disney didn't have the funding or belief in that project. His distributor, RKO Pictures, wanted nothing to do with it. And that forced Walt Disney to cough up all the money for the project himself. And when RKO did finally take over the project, they switched the entire thing over to mono, putting it into regular theaters and ditching the simulated concert experience. Fantasia has never had the opportunity to be what it could have been, even since day one. In the same vein, you could say that Fantasia 2000 was a failure for similar reasons, but instead of not having money, there just wasn't any belief in it from the Disney studio themselves. They put it into theaters, but didn't understand the true essence of what the original Fantasia was. The nightly theme park shows are actually closer to getting it right than almost anything else, since they combine visual and audio elements in such interesting ways that complement each other. If anybody actually took Fantasia seriously, they could see the benefit and how it would actually make money. Set up a concert hall with the film, a live orchestra, and the sense that Walt believed would go along with those visuals and audio, and get an audience together that in unison is going to laugh and cheer and grip their seats. Without Fantasia, we may have never gotten surround sound, or we may have never gotten these experiences where orchestras play along with films. Or maybe we would have. But isn't it time that we adapt Fantasia in the same ways? Maybe then people will start accepting it for what it is: Walt Disney's musical masterpiece. A concert that plays to your senses and leaves you feeling like you've experienced something unique. Something you can't experience in your own home. An overwhelming artistic performance that you and a room full of people have experienced together. Fantasia is, above all else, uniquely its own thing. And I think it's time that we start treating it that way. If you want to hear more about music and film and its connection, go over and check out my Patreon page. This week, I'm going to put up a new podcast specific just to Patreon that's going to be about music and film and their connection. So go check that out, as well as I've got a bunch of videos and other podcasts going up there all the time, exclusive just to Patreon. If you don't know what Patreon is, it's a way that you can support me by donating $1 or $3 or $5 every month. And in return, I give you, I think, some pretty cool perks. So check the link down below for that. And in the meantime, my friends, thanks for watching and keep moving forward.